everyone. I'm Steve here with David Wright again. Thanks for being here, David.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, we're going to talk about how to lose fat. Why are we going to talk about this? It seems like we talk about this all the time, but I get questions all the time on social media. How do you lose belly fat? How do you get smaller? How do you lose weight? So we're going to kind of go over that again and maybe hit it from a different angle and see what happens. But just to let you know, David is a personal trainer at Fitness for 10 in Carson City, Nevada. So if you're near there, go say hi. So, how to lose fat or lose your belly or whatever it is that you want to lose, weight. You have to be in a calorie deficit, right? Now, you have to be in a calorie deficit, but how do you do that? That's really the question. But you have to be in a calorie deficit, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's literally no other way around it. You have to. I mean, that's the simple answer is calorie deficit. Period. End of story. I mean, like, if anybody asked me for a summary of how does that happen, how do I do that? How do I lose body fat? That's the exact explanation that I would give them. You have to be in a calorie deficit. End of story. As far as explanation of how you're going to lose body fat.
Right. And sometimes people want to know, how do I lose this fat here? How do I lose my drum belly? Well, drum belly is really bad. You do want to get rid of it. And you see what I call drum belly on a lot of leaner men, leaner arms, leaner legs, but then they got this belly that's like a drum that sticks out. But to get in a calorie deficit, that doesn't mean, and you and I have talked about this many times, that doesn't mean you just eat less. It means you need to be in a calorie deficit, meaning you're burning more calories than you're taking in. So, first of all, what is the problem? Why is it happening? Your hormones might be off.
Mm-hmm.
You might not be eating enough. You might have to eat more. So what we're trying to do is make our body burn the fat. So it's not so easy as the calories in, calories out. Everyone who listens to my channel knows I hate that term because it's misleading, even though it's true. But how do you get your body to burn more calories than you're eating? And I know that you've given some of your clients advice on this. So what have you said?
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, Steve, I just had a client not that long ago who had a very similar question for me. It was an intro session I had with a client here, first time I met him, and one of his main goals is, hey, I used to be lean, all this stuff. I want to get rid of this, of the belly fat, and then some of my kind of side fat here, love handle area type of thing. He's like, kind of happy with everything else, but I just want to get rid of that. How do I do that? And of course, there's always the myths of, if you go online, there's a zillion different things of how to lose belly fat in particular, right? And I'm just going to put out and say, there's no way to just lose that. As you and I know, Steve, and we've talked about this before, like it's a whole body tissue. Like you lose it where your body wants to lose it. And generally speaking, it's not the same for everyone, but most people, myself included, the last place you're going to lose it is right there in that ab area, your abdomen, your lower back, the places we want it gone first is the last places for it to leave. It just seems to end up that way, at least for me. So like with my clients, when they're talking about whether it's wanting to lose body fat there, they're like, oh, my arm here, I've got this fat, whatever, and I want to get rid of it, tone it up. My whole thing is, okay, well, it's good that we have a goal here like that. You want to reduce your body fat. I explained to them what I just explained here, which was I can't spot reduce that. That's not a thing. But here's what we're going to do to help lower your overall body fat, which will take that fat away or this fat, whatever. But your body's going to decide where it's going to take it from first and last. So we're just going to work to overall lower your entire body fat together. So then eventually we'll get lower where you're looking to get it lower, and you'll notice that. But basically, with the food portion, it's not about, like you said, necessarily eating less in quantity. I always ask about, you know, what are you eating? Give me an idea of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner that you have now, right? What do you eat in general? You know, I get an idea of that, and from that, I can say, okay, um, I'd say more than half the time, people aren't eating enough food because they're to the point where I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to eat less, then I'm going to lose this weight, and I'm going to look wonderful. Sometimes that's the case. If we're eating way too many calories, even if it's healthy, you know, healthier, cleaner foods, and we're eating way too much of it, it's still going to be a calorie surplus. So you're still going to gain weight and body fat. Now, you're not going to gain as much necessarily body fat as if you were eating that same amount of calories in cheeseburgers, but you're still overeating. So I like to have an idea of what they're eating now as an idea of kind of where to go from there. But then I say, okay, so if they're not eating enough, they're very surprised to hear me say, well, from what I see here, and we've done your Staiku body scan and all those other things, so I know how many calories you should be eating, or at least targeting. And just from what you've described, you're not eating enough. They're going, wait, whoa, what do you mean? You know, I want to lose fat. So what do you mean I have to eat more? And I said, well, yeah, you know, your metabolism, you know, your food that you've eaten is gone already, right? So now your body's looking for more, and you're not feeding it anything. So it's going to start slowing down. Our bodies don't want to overwork ourselves, and they're not going to. So it's going to start slowing down if you're doing this whole, you know, reduced calories, I mean, extreme, you know, long term, which some people have been doing it for years, you know, and then wonder, wow, I gained all this body fat and I haven't really even increased my food. Well, yeah, because your metabolism's down here, and, you know, it makes mistakes. So what I tell all the clients is, you know, for each particular one, it's a little different, but we need to get you a certain level of food. We're also going to get you at this certain level of exercise, because maybe you're eating the same amount of food I'm going to have you eat, but you're not doing any exercise, you're not doing any cardio, you're not doing resistance training. Now you're adding that. So guess what? Even if, and this is a generic case, but even if, let's say, you ate exactly what you're eating now, maybe you're overeating a little bit right now. And I'm not talking about, again, you know, cheeseburgers, but like maybe you're overeating calories because you're not very active, or not as active as you could be. Well, now you're coming in and doing personal training, for instance, and coming to the gym on your own. You're increasing your activity by a lot for some people. And so when you're increasing that activity, well, guess what? There goes your calories out. That number's going up. So what happens if we have calories, you know, going up that we're going out the window now, and we're staying at the same level, you know, as long as it's surpassing what we're eating and taking into our mouth, fat loss at different levels, of course, different amounts, you know, per person, depending on how all that's going. But people really just don't quite understand how the deficit part works. And so they're very interested to find out, you know, for them, what that means. And a lot of times, you know, we've been doing more harm than good by doing like the crash diets and all that kind of stuff, where you don't eat a lot of food, and it kind of takes some education and explanation to kind of get them back on the right track, you know, mentally speaking, in terms of what they should be doing to get there versus what, you know, website X told them to do. And, you know, it worked for a while and now they're stuck, or they're gaining weight, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, usually it's just as simple as eating whole foods, eating healthy foods, and getting your protein up. You get your protein up and eat healthy whole foods. Usually that will help. If you're not doing that, that's going to help you get into a calorie deficit just by changing what you're eating. Because when you're eating junk and processed foods, it kind of bogs your body down. Your body doesn't work as well. It clogs up. Again, I'm not being all scientific here. I'm not a scientific guy. I'm just a guy that's been exercising for 50 years, and I know what works for me and what has worked and how things have had to change as I've gotten older. But the main thing is to be healthy. If your hormones are off, that's going to be a problem. Okay, it's going to be very hard to be in a calorie deficit if your hormones are all messed up. But you get your hormones right, Now, boom, all of a sudden you're in a calorie deficit, especially if you're eating healthy and exercising, your body's going to work better. So, all you people out there listening to this, it's not complicated. It might be hard to have the discipline and to eat healthy foods, eat whole foods, and to be disciplined enough to get your protein up and supplement with the right, amino acids or whatever. But that will help your body work better and more efficient. And when it does that, it will help you get into a calorie deficit.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of those things too, to make it super easy without getting, I get a little bit into my things sometimes, but you know, it's a really easy concept in terms of your point where you're talking about, eating whole foods, because it takes a lot. And when I say that, I mean it takes a ton of whole foods, huge mass quantities probably, depending on what you're currently eating now that maybe aren't whole foods and maybe are junk, to equal the amount of calories you're taking in just in that junk food. Because, you go eat at McDonald's as an example right now, take in 2,500 calories in one meal, and you're hungry in 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. You go eat again, you take in 2,500 calories worth of like the stuff that I'm eating. And I'm super plain as far as what I'm eating because that works for me. But 2,500 calories, that's maybe not quite a whole day, but it's quite a lot of food spread over several meals for me. Whereas, one meal at some, place like, McDonald's or whatever, that's going to be next to no food. So I also like to make sure the clients understand that, not all calories are equal. Yes, you know what? At the end of the day, the calculations of how much, each macro is as far as calories, per gram of protein and carbs and fats. Yes, you know what? That stays the same. But what else are you putting in your body? To your point, Steve, testosterone. If you don't have high enough testosterone, or other hormone levels, estrogen, different things like that, your body's affected on how it does. And when you're eating junk, that can affect those levels and make them lower. Why? Because you're not eating whole foods. Why do you need those? Because that helps your body perform better. One of those things is your hormones. So if your body's not performing better, it's all kind of messed up because you're not eating, whole foods or very healthy at all. That leads to all these other things. So it's really just boils down to eat whole foods, eat clean, eat as healthy as you possibly can. And it's not, to your point, an easy thing to start doing and to stay consistent with at first. But once you've been consistent with it, it's not difficult anymore. It's a way of life. It's a lifestyle. And people say that all the time, and it probably drives people crazy, but it is. It's a lifestyle. And that becomes your new lifestyle. It's not a diet that you have to stay on for X amount of months. This is how I'm eating from now on. That's done. Then it takes the whole oh, I have a time where I'm going to go back to eating whatever I'm currently eating, after I'm done with this. Well, you're not done with a lifestyle. You just continue it. It's just how it is. And so once you get to the point where you can make it there, and it takes work, there's no work left to be had because you've changed your lifestyle and it just becomes, the normal thing. So I like to try to steer my clients in that type of direction because then it takes one more thing off their plate after they've gotten into that routine and see those benefits. Then they just continue it and not consider it like a diet, because your diet is what you eat. It has other meanings to other people, but in the end of the day, the diet is what are you eating? It's not a fad diet. It's not diets that, make you lose 50 pounds in a month or all these other, it's just what you're eating. That's just what diet is. So I try to kind of take that out as well for my clients and say, when I say diet, that means just what you're eating. That's all that it means. Not saying lose weight, all these other things, because a diet, specific diet that you're on, you can gain muscle, you can gain weight if that's the goal. That's just what a diet is. So I try to simplify it as much as I can, depending on whom I'm talking to, what the client's needs are, and kind of go from there because everybody will be different. But really, it just comes down to, you need to really just understand the basics of how it works and get your information from, credible sources that don't overpromise, things that seem too good to be true and too quick to be true. They're definitely most likely going to be not true.
And you say diet, and I'll make a really clear point that gives you, everyone listening, an example of this whole diet thing. When you say diet, people think, oh, I'm going to starve. I'm going to starve myself. Here's an example I just looked up. It's what you eat. If you ate, I just looked this up, 10 cups of broccoli, 10 cups of broccoli is 310 calories. Can you eat 10 cups of broccoli? People listening, can you eat 10 cups of broccoli? That's 310 calories. Or how many calories do you think is in one Twinkie? 280.
I
You
believe that.
can you can eat one Twinkie or 10 cups of broccoli and have about the same amount of energy going in. So that puts in perspective what we're talking about. So your diet is what you eat. It's not starving yourself.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
David, if people want to follow you on social media, how do they do that?
So they can follow me on Instagram at davidwright_fitness or at Wright Fitness Training for my personal training page.
All right. Thanks for being with us, David.
Thanks, Steve.